folks, it's Steve with Prima Coffee here. Today we're talking about the Kruve coffee sifting system. This is a really new product with some really cool features and filling a niche that hasn't really been touched before in the coffee world. Now what this is a set of sieves. We have 3 layers and a lid. You basically get a catch pan and 2 sieving layers, and you can put screens in either of these of whatever size you wish. We sell 2 different sets. We have a 6 screen set and a 12 screen set. So basically you have a range of particle sizes that correspond to these screens, and you can set whatever you like depending on what your outcomes that you want for sifting your coffee are. Now let's take a quick break to talk about why you might want to sift your coffee. Something like the Kruve is a really interesting tool to implement in your coffee brewing routine because not every grinder is really made equal, and in fact many are made better than others. So if you look at commercial grinders, for example, many commercial grinders have fairly uniform particle sizes, and that means that the ground coffee particles that they create are more close in size over their whole spectrum. They're not going to be all just one size. There's going to be a mix of small and big and a lot of in between. However, usually the more expensive the grinder, the more uniform those particles are. So if you were to use something like the Kruve and you were to sift your coffee, you would find that most of that coffee is going to wind up in this middle layer. It's going to be a fairly uniform size. You'll have a little bit of fine particles down here and a little bit of coarse particles up here, but the majority of it will be right here in the middle. Now, if you have a, let's say, lesser grinder, but something like a home grinder, which isn't quite as robust and doesn't have the same size burrs as those larger commercial grinders, you will find that you have kind of a lot down here and kind of a lot up here and not quite as much up here in the middle here. So if you want to have a grind profile and a flavor in your cup that's more similar to those commercial grinders, you might sift your coffee and remove some of those fine particles and big particles and focus mainly on the stuff in the center. So that's exactly what the Kruve is meant to do. The idea here is that you pick the screen sizes that correspond to what you're brewing. So for example, I have a 400 micron screen and a 900 micron screen, which means that I'm going to sift out any small particles that are finer than 400 microns, and as well as get rid of any boulders that are larger than 900 microns. And then between 400 and 900, that should be a pretty good particle range for something like a V60 or Kalita wave brew, a moderately sized pour-over brew. If I were doing espresso, I might go finer. I might sift out anything below 200 microns, as well as anything above 400 microns, and keep that 200 to 400 range. Or I might focus even more concisely than that. I could use a 200 micron and a 250 micron and only use that really tight 200 to 250 micron range. It's really up to you, and it actually opens a lot of doors for experimentation. Kruve recommends using screens that focus on getting the majority of your coffee in the center sifter here. However, you don't have to do that. If you want to just sift out 3 different sizes of ground coffee basically and then remix them in whatever proportion you like, you can do that. Something that you wouldn't be able to do just by grinding your coffee. Now you can sift it, striate the layers and the particle sizes, and then mix it however you like based on the flavors that you want to try, or again, maybe you just want to experiment. Anyway, let's take a look at how you might actually use this. Now I've got some ground coffee here. I'm going to add it into the top. You always add your coffee into the top because as you sift this coffee, you're going to be shaking it, and you want gravity to do the majority of the work, where the fine particles will continue falling down into layers below, and the largest particles will stay up top. So we add it to the top chamber. This holds about 70 to 80 grams, depending on your grind size. So it's not going to be really good for like commercial use, but it'll be good for single cups or smaller batches that you might do at home. From there, we're going to put our lid on, and then we're just going to pick it up and start to shake side to side. You do this for a couple minutes and occasionally give it a couple taps on the side. That helps just sort of jostle things loose. But really, it's very easy to do. You just put your ground coffee in the top, give it a shake, and then again, as you shake it side to side, that coffee is going to move over those screens, and anything smaller than the whole size will fall directly down into the chamber below. And again, any of the finest particles will make it through that fine screen and fall into the catch cup at the very bottom. So let's take a look at the results that we have. Now this was coffee ground on an EK43, and which is a rather robust commercial grinder with really big burrs, and usually has fairly good particle uniformity. And you can see in just a few moments of shaking, I've got a very big mix of particle sizes here. Not too many fines. I've got a mix, quite a lot on the upper end, that 900 micron, and a smaller amount between the 400 and the 900. So actually this is a case where I probably should have used a larger screen on the upper portion so I could get more of that coffee in the middle. But there is sort of a dialing in process here, figuring out what screen sizes are going to work best for the brewing method that you're using, as well as what screen sizes work best for getting the most yield out of your coffee. Because usually you would discard something like this, maybe not all of the fines, but again, Kruve recommends getting the majority of your ground coffee into that middle chamber. So you want to make sure that you're using the screens that will yield the most coffee in that middle chamber with the corresponding grind size on your home grinder. But really, again, there's room for experimentation here. There's a lot of ways to use this that aren't necessarily what's prescribed by Kruve, and there's a lot of room for kind of playing with this device, sifting your coffee however you like, and then brewing with it however you like as well. Another thing to note, again, I said we have a variety of screen sizes here. So this is the set of screens that come with the 12 screen set. Again, there's also a 6 screen set, so you just get a few fewer screen sizes, which is probably okay for most people. The 12 is probably just the nerdiest. You know, you really want to play around with your coffee, so you have a wider array of screen sizes. But they progress from 200 microns to 1100 microns, and you can see the difference in hole sizes here. 200 is far too small for most particles, really mainly for espresso use, but 1100 is pretty good at eliminating the largest boulders that your grinder might be producing with your grind. So that is the Kruve coffee sifter system. Thanks so much for watching.